question. This actually is a serious question. Why don't you like us Black people? Non-American Asians always gave me the cold shoulder. American Asians were cool, and I often hang out with them. Are they just not used to us?
Partially.
Sad to say, but I know that there's anti-Blackness very much so in a lot of Asian American communities. And obviously, unfortunately, anti-Blackness is global. And I think like
it's a very long historical answer.
Yeah.
Some of it has to do with not being used to it. Okay, so colonization happened throughout the whole world when white colonizers took over Asia, Africa, all the other continents. And with that came the belief of anti-Blackness that was instilled upon all of these communities. Now, once those colonizations ended, you were left with this homogenized community where they don't know anyone who don't look like they're all white, all Asian, all South Asian, whatever it may be. And then all of a sudden you fast forward to having technology and Western media, because again, controlled by whiteness, is pushing out this message of that Black communities are gangsters, do this, they do that. And then that media gets pushed out into the world in the form of movies and TV shows. And now you take this homogenized community who has learned anti-Blackness through colonization and stuff like that, on top of the fact that it's then mixed with people who are learning about these races for the first time through fictionized television that is controlled by white media. And then you have this biased look. So when they meet Black people for the first time, they're having to reconcile what they have been essentially brainwashed into thinking versus then trying to figure out what that means when they meet you and they're like, but you're not any of these things, which is the reason why you get a lot of people from Asia who are having to go through that discovery, and Asian Americans who grew up with that and know that those are things that are essentially propaganda, mind washing, to keep upholding this idea of, and instead of using the WS word, I'm going to say anti-Blackness, because one is,
hand in hand,
and they push this anti-Blackness, then it's basically global propaganda. So then people are trying to, come to those terms. And instead of just being hateful, they may just not understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think that's like the short end of it.
Yeah. I mean, I have nothing to contribute. That was very concise. A lot of people are just conditioned to believe that Black people are whatever the conditioner wants you to believe they are.
Yep.
And, like my grandma, the only Black people she had ever seen were American soldiers in Korea. And to her, they were all part of the same group. And then when she came to America, all she knew about Black people was, like you said, what she had seen on TV, what people had told her. And so she was very distrusting of Black people. And I was like, how many Black people are just like everybody else? Like, I go to school with Black kids, like, and she was just like, oh no, they're very dangerous. I'm like, they're not. This is just what people wanted you to believe. But, what else did she know? You know what I mean? She's just this like, country girl from, uneducated, and is told by everybody in power what to believe. My God is better. My people are better. My guns are better. So she's like, okay, well, all of these things are better. So I better side with the better side.
Yep.
Let me be clear. It's not about hate. It's about truth. It's about understanding how racism just doesn't come out from a bloom. It comes out from somewhere, and in many different directions. It exists between communities of color too. A lot of people like to talk about unity between people of color, but we can't have unity without honesty. So, we are going to talk about where Asian anti-Blackness came from and how both communities can move towards respect and solidarity. Asian communities hold negative stereotypes, biases, and discriminatory attitude towards Black people. Sometimes it's open and obvious, like insulting and avoiding Black people. Other times it's subtle, like treating black people as less beautiful, and even being scared of black people because of social media stereotype. This mindset didn't start from nowhere. It started from colonialism and Western media and white supremacy. For generations, societies were taught to admire whiteness and light skin and European features, but look down on blackness. That mindset spreads through movies, ads, school, and social systems. So, even though Asians and black people both experience racism, anti blackness still shows up in Asian communities because of that deep historical condition.
Let's have the conversation that people love to sidestep, because anti-Blackness does not just come from white folks, and it for sure did not just appear out of nowhere. And if we're serious about solidarity, we have to trace where it actually started. Now, first thing, this is not about all Asian communities. That's lazy, and I am not lazy. But when we talk about patterns, we're talking about systems. And the system made sure that anti-Blackness wasn't just exported, it was globalized. See, when European powers colonized Asia, they didn't just take the land, they also imported hierarchy. They pushed the idea that lighter skin meant civility, wealth, purity, and darker skin was poverty, backwardness, and danger. And that colonial script seeped deep, from India to the Philippines, all the way to Japan. Skin tone became the ladder, and whiteness was always at the top. If we fast forward to Asian immigration in the US, you arrive in a country that's already built on anti-Blackness, already criminalizing Black life. And what do politicians do? They dangle a deal. If you distance yourself from Black people, we'll give you a seat closer to whiteness. And that's where the model minority myth comes in. It was never a compliment, it was always a weapon. The government used it in the 1960s to say, hey, look at these Asian immigrants. They work hard, they follow the rules. Why can't Black folks do the same? And that's when it turns survival into separation. And here's the ugly truth. Some communities actually leaned into it, right? Because if your family's safety, your visa, your livelihood depends on being seen as the good immigrant, you'll play the role, even if it means stepping on Black people to do it. But don't get it twisted. This was not organic hate. It was policy. It was propaganda. And it worked because it kept us divided while white supremacy stayed in power. So when we talk about Asian anti-Blackness today, whether it shows up in colorism, anti-Black policing in Asian-owned shops, or even silence around Black death, we've got to understand that it didn't just fall from the sky. It was planted by colonizers, by governments, by systems that profit when we fight each other and not them. And until we name that history, we are not building solidarity. We're just repeating the cycle. And I, for one, refuse to keep the cycle quiet.
The Asian community is literally so anti-Black, and it literally fucking pisses me off. Like, we are literally so uneducated, uninformed, just misinformed, everything about the Black community, and it pisses me off. And like, it just boggles my mind how a lot of Asians see Black people as beneath them. I shit you not, I literally saw someone on my story and I literally was so gagged. Like, I was like, are you serious right now? And I sent him a message, ask him if he's being serious about this. This guy is Bhutanese. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but like, I guess he got like some kind of spray tan or whatever because he's doing some kind of stupid movie shoot or whatever. Roy posts on his story and says, because his skin is like 10 shades darker or something, he said, can I say the N-word now? With a ninja emoji next to it. I slid up so fucking quick and I asked this man, are you fucking serious right now? And guess what? That man left me on red. Need I say again that he is not Black? He is Bhutanese from Bhutan or whatever the fuck you pronounce it. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Quite honestly, like, the Asian community is literally so underhandedly racist to the Black community, and it just, like, not to mention the Black community is one of the most supportive of marginalized groups that has ever, like, uplifted and uplifted the Asian community and actually put effort into supporting us. I'm probably gonna piss a lot of Asians off for saying that, but it's literally the truth, and I fucking see it for what it is.
Let's talk about how this show up in real life. You see it at places where black people are judged to be aggressive and lazy, while Asians are labeled model minorities. You see it also in beauty standards, whereby the light skin creams are marketed heavily across Asia, and that skin is associated by being pure or unattractive. You see it in pop culture, where the Asian movies they rarely include a black person, or when or when artists appropriate the black music and fashion, but disrespect the people who created it. Even in daily life, black people share stories of going to Asian stores and being followed, disrespected, or overcharged simply because they are black. These experiences are painful and they create distance between these two communities that should actually be allies. Now let's go deep into history. During colonialism, European powers spread racist hierarchies around the world, teaching that white is at the top and black is at the bottom. In many Asian communities, those hierarchies took roots. Then, Western media, news, Hollywood, and advertising continue to paint black people as violent, poor, or uneducated. So, even people who never met black people grew up believing harmful stereotypes. At the same time, Asians in Western countries like the US were called the model minorities, a label that actually created competition. It told Asians you are trying to divide, not uplift. And sadly, it worked for many years.
Story time. I got to tell you a story. I went to bring my daughters to school this morning and they said, Daddy, can we do a car ride? And I bring them to school. They got to go into school about 8:15 and we get there about 8:12. And we're waiting in the car so we can walk up to the building. As I'm walking up to the building, I'm walking next to this lady, this Korean lady, right? So it's me, my three daughters, me, MJ, Nini, and Aaliyah. And this lady, she's walking with her son and she says to me, wow, your daughters are so beautiful, right? Their hair is beautiful. Their skin is beautiful. They're so beautiful. And I say, thank you. Tell me how she says to me, this is my son. I have two other boys, but he has black in him. And when she said that, I said, wait, what? Say it again. She said, he has black in him. Not the other two, but him. He has the good genes. And when she said that to me, I didn't know what to think because I was like, wait, did you just say the one that you're walking with, the younger one, the one that has black in him, has good genes? And as she said that to me, it hit me. I mean, I've always known this and it hit me. And, my goal with making this video is not to offend anybody. It's just to share something, right? I've always felt that other races know and believe that black people are beautiful people, right? And if you're a believer, and if you're a believer in Christ, we're all God's people, right? We're all God's children, and we're all beautiful people. But when you, I'm trying to say this in a way that come off the right way, right? I know I might offend some people, but it's okay. I know I'm beautiful. My kids know they're beautiful, right? My wife knows she's beautiful because we make beautiful kids. But I also know that black people are beautiful people, people of Afro descendant, genetically beautiful, emotionally intelligent, intellectually like smart, quick thinking, arts, performance, academics, right? When it comes to just not just sports, when it comes to school, when it comes to just thinking, when it comes to just like to be on the streets, to be in the hood sometimes growing up, you got to be street smart, right? You need intelligence, right? But when this lady, she's Korean, by the way, Korean lady, when she looked at me and she said, I have 3 boys and this one has black in him, he has the good genes. That confirmed it for me that other races, they may not publicly say it, secretly deep down, I think some of them wish they had our genes. Now, not saying anything bad against anybody, because everybody's beautiful and everybody got what works for them. God created you with what you got, to use what you got to serve him and to serve the people who he called you to serve. I'm sharing this message because personally, I know people who look like me but don't feel confident with how they look and don't feel confident with their genetical makeup. So I'm sharing this message for the youngins, the ones in high school, the ones who are in their 20s, the ones who are in their 30s, who are struggling with identity, who are struggling with how they look and a world, if it's going to accept them. Just know that you're beautifully made, you're beautifully made up, and other people wish they had what you got. So thank God for that.
I say we as an Asian, like we heard about America and we learned that to survive in this country, we needed to align ourselves with whiteness and not blackness because we didn't want to catch that smoke, essentially. So we aligned ourselves with whiteness. And so proximity to whiteness keeps us, quote unquote, safer. But in doing that, they can be like, ha, model minority. If the Asians can do it, why can't you do it? And so we created a wedge as people of color against other people of color.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole thing. And then like the riots in LA, the wedge theory came in crazy because professionals from Asia came, but they're not allowed to be doctors here. But they can get a loan because they're proximity to whiteness. But they can only get a loan in black neighborhoods.
Right.
Where black people couldn't get loans.
Right.
And so there's that automatic tension.
Please be patient with me because there's so much here. I think the quick answer is that Asian Americans are given white privilege, especially the Asian Americans who fit the model minority stereotype. The quid pro quo for receiving that privilege is upholding white supremacy culture, which means being anti-Black. I was talking with somebody last night who was pointing out that the Civil Rights Amendment was passed in 1964. But also in the 1960s, the United States opened the door to Asian immigration. So now you have an influx of racial minorities who knew nothing about the history of white violence against Black people, knew nothing about the Black civil rights movement. So they arrived with civil rights, not understanding how that came to be. And also it effectively erased the United States' own anti-Asian history because Asian Americans came in not necessarily knowing about the Chinese Exclusion Act or the internment of Japanese Americans in the United States during World War II. And I think that Asian Americans are used as a buffer between the Black community and the white community because in the 1960s, there was almost a racial reckoning. The white power structure almost had to face accountability for the history of violence against Black people. But instead, Asian Americans were inserted and were pit against each other so that we're always up against each other. And that basically like white supremacy escapes accountability. And the example that I think of that sort of started like the root of a lot of tension is Asian Americans were buying into the negative media stereotypes of Black people. And then in the events that led up to what became known as the LA riots, the LAPD kettled protests away from wealthy white neighborhoods and into Koreatown, and then they left. And we know how that played out. So again, the two communities being pitted against each other, and away from the white power structure. And obviously the model minority myth is used to oppress the Black community. And there's so much here. I will be getting more into it, but I feel like that's the quickest answer that I can give that gets a little bit into the history. And I'm really curious to know what the Black community and Asian Americans feel about this. But please be patient with me. Thank you.
Here's the thing, we can learn all of that. Right now, many young Asians are speaking against anti-Blackness in their own families and communities. They realize that freedom and equality cannot exist if they ignore other groups' oppression. And many Black people also want genuine unity, not fake alliances. But real respect, where both sides listen and support each other. We can start by educating each other about history, calling racism wherever we see it, even when it's within our own community. Also, by supporting each other's businesses, art, and voices. And understand that we are strong together when we stand together and reject the system that is trying to divide us. At the end of the day, anti-Blackness hurts everyone because it keeps people of color fighting each other instead of fighting against racism itself. So here's the message to everyone watching, especially my Asian brothers and sisters. If you've ever been silent about anti-Blackness, it's time to speak up. If you ever believed in stereotypes, it's time to unlearn them. Because true progress means looking in the mirror and being honest about the harm we might cause, even unintentionally. To my Black brothers and sisters, thank you for your strength, your creativity, your culture, your resilience. You've inspired the world, even when the world didn't give you the credit. And to everyone, we can do better. Let's build bridges, not barriers. Let's replace stereotype with understanding. Because at the end of the day, humanity has no color. But love and respect must be shown to all. If you learned something about this video, drop a comment below. Share your thoughts and don't forget to like and subscribe for more real conversations. Thank you for watching. Let's keep healing, learning, and uniting.